What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we've got an episode of Chicago Bulls Weekly to bring to you guys as we discuss the previous week for the Chicago Bulls and discuss what's ahead for this team as well. Obviously, this is also the week that the trade deadline came to an end, and again, now we are focusing on the buyout market. And as I will have to say before we get started on this video, this is a pre-recorded video. So in order for me to, I guess, give you the best information possible, I feel like it's important to say that because as the time I'm recording this video, the Cleveland Cavaliers game has yet to take place. But the last thing I wanted to do is completely ignore the Bulls Weekly and just forget about it. It's a weekly tradition on this channel. I want to provide one every single week, so we don't have all the details here this week, I'll say that much. So hopefully, again, by the time this video comes out, you should know I guess the results for the Cleveland game. You should know how we played, how poorly we played, and then you can also, in this situation, maybe change up the awards a little bit because, for example, I'm only going to give awards for the previous games that I've actually seen. I won't be able to give one for the Cavs because it hasn't taken place yet. I hope that makes sense, but altogether, I still wanted to provide it. I still wanted to talk about it, so let's begin. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Bulls previous week and upcoming week heading into potential buyout options, as well as where do you think the Bulls will be throughout the course of this whole regular season. There's a lot to get through here. So, in saying that, I've got to say this has been a very, very frustrating week for the Chicago Bulls. Of course, there's a lot of things that could take place on the court, but as well as off the court for the Chicago Bulls. I've got to say this has been one of the most frustrated periods I think I've ever had. Not only recording videos for the Chicago Bulls and just around this space around the Chicago Bulls, but ever since I've been a Chicago Bulls fan, I don't think I've been as frustrated as I am right now. And again, on the court definitely makes things worse. But just knowing that we didn't make any moves, or that we were one of the only teams in the NBA that did no moves whatsoever to make this team better, when I think it was clear as day there were moves that could have made us better, that kind of frustrated me a little bit. So I can't lie about that, and I do feel like it is important to mention that briefly in Chicago Bulls Weekly. But altogether, we had a few games. We had two games this week that I've actually seen. It was a back-to-back scenario. Actually, sorry, we had three games that we had this week, and we ended up going 1-2. So again, it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, judging by the Cavs game, you'll probably have a better idea of how the week actually has been perceived. But altogether, I feel extremely negative this week. The losses are definitely not great losses. Even though the win was pretty positive, if I do say so myself, even though the score may have flattered us. But again, the trade deadline and everything in between there, the comments, the Bulls fans reacting the way that they're reacting, it's a negative space right now for the Bulls, I guess. And the atmosphere right now is so negative around the Bulls. So it's going to be hard to overcome, but you got to have to pick yourself up eventually. Again, it feels great to feel sorry for ourselves in many ways. Like, okay, we're one of the only teams that did nothing, but eventually we have to forget about the trade deadline. It's over. If you dwell on it too much, you're just going to be in a negative space for the rest of the season. I'm trying my best to make sure that my mind is focused on moving forward, the buyout options, and trying to make the playoffs if we can. That's where I want my mind to be, but I don't really know if I'm there yet, I can't lie. So let's just get started on the results. The first game we had was against the San Antonio Spurs, and we won this game 128-104. Again, I think the Bulls absolutely erupted in the fourth quarter to end up getting a pretty convincing win over the Spurs. But I will say is for 3/4 of that game, that was an extremely tight, difficult game to overcome. But thankfully, we walked away with a win. It was a win in Chicago as well. It was a beautiful sight to see, and that was when we were one game below 500, and you just believed this Bulls team can turn it around and push it over into the next game and try to battle it out there. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be. We had a game against the Memphis Grizzlies, and we lost this game 104-89. What I'll say about this game is it was competitive for most of the game. Bulls took the lead in the, I think, third quarter, second quarters of those games. Memphis had the best opportunities in the first and the fourth quarter. But the problem is both teams didn't play well. I don't think this is the best you'll see from Memphis, and I definitely think this is one of the worst performances you'll see from the Bulls as well. But in the end, our performances when we were struggling were just worse than theirs. They struggled in the second and third quarters of that game. the Bulls struggled in the first and the fourth quarters of that game, but our struggles were worse, and I think that's the only reason why Memphis won that game. Their defense was swarming. It was great defense by them. The Bulls struggled offensively, but I can't sit here and say that we didn't play amazing defense in that game. I thought our defense was super solid for the most part. But again, just a bit frustrating of a result, knowing that that game right there could have put us in the 500 mark, and maybe that confidence could still be there by this Bulls team. And then things get bad to worse. The day in which the Bulls made no trades, the trade deadline came to an end, we had a game against Brooklyn. Bulls missed shoot-around to go to some sort of event of some sorts before this game. And it showed, because we got our ass handed to us in this game, 116 to 105. A team like the Brooklyn Nets that were extremely short-staffed in many ways. Their new signings did not, I guess, participate in this game. They were at the arena, they were watching the game, but they weren't participating in the game. Spencer Dinwiddie and Finney Smith, they played. Obviously, Cam Thomas has been very good for Brooklyn for at least over a week, over 2 weeks. He's been one of the best players in the NBA recently. So, again, this game hurt in many ways because we still had the advantages here. Well, they didn't have Nicholas Claxton in this game either. So again, opportunities went missing for the Chicago Bulls, and I truly think this has been one of the worst performances we've seen for the Chicago Bulls this season. So very, very disappointing in every sense of the word. And again, from what was a frustrating day became an unbearable day. And to be honest, look, it's still the same day for me. So I guess, yeah. Anyway. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with the awards. Obviously, there's Must Improve, Defensive Player of the Week, Sixth Man of the Week, and Player of the Week in general. We'll start off with the first one, which is the Must Improve of the Week, and I'm going to pick the whole team here. Again, maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, knowing that today's just been one hell of a day, and it's just extremely frustrating and disappointing and just annoying in general. I hated what I saw out of the Bulls, I guess, today. I hated what I saw out of the Bulls against Memphis, and again, just everything piling on. But I feel like this team in general has been very, very disappointing. Looking at the Brooklyn game, because I've never actually had a chance to look at the stats. These stats are awful. Patrick Williams' stats was awful. DeMar DeRozan's stats was awful. Moving into the bench, you could see Andre Drummond do a little bit better. Goran Dragic hasn't had a great week. Derrick Jones hasn't really had the best week. And the big three, I don't think all play well together in any of these games, really, except for the Spurs game. So that's where my attention lies. Different games, different people let us down. So in my opinion, the best way to resolve that situation is to pick the whole team to improve, because it's a team effort for a win and a loss. And I felt like the reason why we've lost some of these games is not because one person let us down. The whole team let us down this week, in my opinion. So that's where my direction will go. But of course, there will be some people that will get some praise in spite of a very bad week for the Bulls. This Defensive Player of the Week I will give to Alex Caruso. Again, I think that's the best thing we've seen out of Alex Caruso this week. Offensively, he had a two-point game performance, whatever, in the game against Memphis. That's just not good enough, in my opinion. You have to be at least capable in 26 minutes of providing some sort of offense. I understand you're not the number one option, number two. You're basically the fifth option in the starting lineup if Alex Caruso's in the starting lineup. I understand that, but again, looking at people that play that amount of time and getting 2 points or 3 points in a game, sometimes 0 points in a game, I know that's what Alex Caruso has been his whole career, but in 26 minutes of action, you're getting the most minutes you've had your entire career as a Chicago Bull, or in general. You're getting the most minutes on this Bulls team last season and this season. I just feel like we see too many of these performances where Alex Caruso is not providing any offense whatsoever, but is providing amazing defense, and he's putting himself in the lineup because of how good his defense is. There's no question about it. Alex Caruso's defense far and away is the best that we have on the team. I don't think anyone comes close to Alex Caruso's defense. You might say Ayo, but stats don't lie. Ayo's not having a great defensive season compared to Alex Caruso, and there are a lot of guys in between there that's not even close to Alex Caruso. So he's clearly our best defender. But in terms of offense, he might be up there as one of the worst on the team, in all honesty. And that is something that you can't always see on a regular basis. So again, he had a good game against Brooklyn, to be honest. 6 points is kind of where I expect Alex Caruso to be. An extra 2 buckets on your tally. All of a sudden, your offensive game, at least you're providing something on the offensive end. But again, those 2 to 0 point games, it's really frustrating to watch sometimes. So that's where the Defensive Player of the Week will go to him, and the Must Improve will not go to him. but I think it's clear that we need to see a little bit more offensive, I guess, output for Alex Caruso. I'm not saying go and average 12 points per game, because again, that's not in your repertoire either. You can't exactly change who you are, but just the aggressiveness to play better offense every single game. Be more aggressive when you play. Don't be stagnant on offense. Don't be reluctant to shoot on offense and stuff like that. That's a combination of a lot of things for a lot of our players, in all honesty. So that's where my focus will go. Moving into the sixth man of the week, I'm going to pick Andre Drummond. He had a phenomenal game against the San Antonio Spurs, if I'm not mistaken. 21 points, 15 rebounds, 9 from 9 from the field. Probably one of the best games we've seen all season from Andre Drummond, and one of the best performances we've seen all season from a Bulls player, especially coming off the bench. He made history that game, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he's been okay I guess every step of the way since. Not been the best, but also not been the worst. So that's where the sixth man of the week will go. And the player of the week will go to Nikola Vucevic, because Zach LaVine's game against Memphis was just not great, and Vuce was consistent the whole way through. Looking at Vuce's stats against the Nets, because I feel like he could have had a much better game against the Nets. He had 15 and 17. I almost felt like, man, that could have been so much more, and it's disappointing that we failed to see that, but it is what it is. We seem to always let ourselves down in that way, and we're going to have to take it on board heading into the next games. So again, I apologize for not talking about the Cavs game, pre-recorded once again. I don't know the Cavs result. Hopefully, maybe if things are better, you can dictate the awards a little bit more. So for example, if you think, let's just say Coby White drops 40 against the Cavs, well then, all of a sudden, Coby White might be the sixth man of the week instead of Andre Drummond. You know what I mean? Or if Alex Caruso has one of the worst defensive performances we've ever seen in a Bulls uniform against the Cavs, well then you can change the defensive player of the week. Player of the week. Again, you understand the idea. Hopefully, again, everything will be sorted. Hopefully the awards will still be right. Hopefully we just beat the Cavs. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Now we move forward into the next upcoming games for the Chicago Bulls. We've got a game against the Orlando Magic at home. This is obviously a big game for the Chicago Bulls in the sense of, again, trying to pick up momentum. And a game against Orlando, we've beaten Orlando once, they've beaten us once. It's not going to be an easy game for the Bulls. It's at home. You expect us to win this game. I'll be very upset if we didn't win this game, but again, knowing the Bulls and their circumstances, you can never be too safe. The next game is going to be against the Indiana Pacers away from home. We've seen with Indiana, I'm pretty sure they beat us and we beat them as well. So again, very, very, I guess you could say, even matchup between the Pacers and the Bulls. And then we got a big game against the Milwaukee Bucks at home. And that is it for the Chicago Bulls. And then I believe we have our next game on the 25th of Feb. So that's a long way away. So I believe that's where the All-Star break and all of that stuff will be taking place. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's really all we've got to talk about in relation to Bulls Weekly today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Sorry if it's a bit all over the place, but that's just how today has been, all over the place. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care and peace.